All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I am delighted. Our Friday show, one of my favorite shows. I've got my buddies here. Albert's sitting in today. He's got
Albert, thank you.
You know, he's got a full schedule, but always time for a Friday show. He's curated a Friday Fabulous Florida segment, which is a bit of a palate cleanser to some of the nastiness of the world, and there's way too much of that. Kim is here as well.
Kim, how are you?
She's here to give me a hard time. That is really her
I
prime
love it.
directive. Yeah.
This is what I live for.
She wants to push back, make sure that I never get too big for my britches. Have you ever heard that expression, Albert? It's kind of an old school expression, too big for his britches. That's when they called pants britches. Yeah.
Yes, I've heard that a couple of times, but I heard it from South Park, though. So.
Oh, wow. The too big for his britches made it into South Park. That's pretty wild. I have a lot of news for you from Washington. It extends into Iran. I have news for you from the ICE detainees, and I have news for you from the ICE detainment centers. Also, Avila, the former White House correspondent for ABC, joins us in hour 2. It's going to be also a terrific meetup in a week next Thursday in the evening, 9:30 Eastern Time, baby. Yes, stay up late with us for 2 hours. 6:30 for the kids on the West Coast. Our June swoon is filling up quickly. If you were on the fence, I don't know if I can make it, I'm not sure. Lock it up, baby. Lock it up. It's the virtual meetup. June 26th, again, it's next Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. 2 hours of June swooning. Special guests. We're putting the all call out. They may all be there. And here's how you do it. It's a $50 donation to the show. Do it on PayPal. I'll do this very quickly so we can get into things. PayPal link is under all our videos, also on our website, themarkthompsonshow.com. Note with the PayPal donation, June Swoon or Meetup, and then RSVP to mtsmeetup@gmail.com. Again, just say at mtsmeetup@gmail.com, hey, I did the PayPal thing, and looking forward to seeing everybody, or whatever you want to say. But filling up fast. We also have some scholarship seats. One of them was awarded to teacher Lori, and one of them was awarded to, I think, Judy W. I have to go back and look. And if you guys can reach out to me, then we can make sure that you get the link. It's a big Zoom call. You don't have to appear on camera. You can just appear with audio, and just hang out and participate that way. I don't want you to feel like you have to, get some glam squad in for hair and makeup for our meetup. It's a casual thing. So, excited to have you potentially next Thursday.
The Mark Thompson Show.
There is much going on today, and as I say, the question about Michael Shore. Michael is not going to be with us today. I'll tell you, I don't know if he'd want me to tell you this, but I'm just going to, I don't think he'd mind. He had to put his dear dog down after 15 years. Yeah, and he just needs a few days. And
I'm so sorry to hear that.
We all know the pain of that, and I'm very much affected by that kind of thing. Even just talking about his dog being put down makes me emotional. So I just do want to say that our heart breaks for him and anybody who has to do that as the last act of mercy.
Yep.
But it's it's the reason that Michael isn't with us today. But Nullifidian was quick into the chat. I think he was the very first one in, Kim. And he notes that some birthdays today, John Goodman, Audie Murphy, is an old screen star, I think. Lionel Richie, who's a new old recording artist. Errol Flynn, who was an old screen star. Cyndi Lauper, who is a recording artist. Chet Atkins, also. Nicole Kidman, Martin Landau, Bob Vila. Oh, this is a good one. Bob Vila. This is a good one right here.
This is Will Albert Know It.
Yeah. Albert, Bob Vila. Now, I feel like this is a doable for you. It's kind of probably in your lifespan, but maybe not. Do you know who Bob Vila was?
I remember seeing him on a lot of
Yes.
commercials. Late 90s, early 2000s. Was he doing up houses? What was he
Yes,
doing?
I will take doing up houses. Very, very good.
I would not have known that, Albert. I'm impressed.
Very impressive. Do you want to play for the big money, or you want to just, take the W and move on?
Let me look at the names real quick. I'll go home with I'll take the money.
All right. Well, he's going to take the money, everybody. We were going to ask him about Martin Landau. Would you have known that? Martin Landau?
No, yeah, I cashed out.
Okay.
God. Yeah.
All right. Martin Landau, the actor, I think he's passed away, but apparently it's his birthday today.
Who's that last guy? Ulf.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know who the last guy was. I think I probably skipped over that subliminally on purpose. Can you check who Ulf is, Albert? Maybe.
Yes, let me do a quick Google.
Ulf Merbold, for those who are just listening and not watching.
Oh,
Malefidian came into the chat and
he's a German astronaut.
Oh, German. Well, that's a little obscure. I don't mean to, I'm sure of some repute, of some fame, right?
Flew to space 3 times, was the first West German citizen in space, and the first non-American to fly on a NASA spacecraft. Oh,
wow. Oh, that's quite noteworthy. Yeah. That's Malefidian says also somehow I missed Mo Howard's birthday yesterday. Albert, would you have known Mo Howard?
I'm glad we didn't play yesterday.
Yeah. He just booked the W. Mo Howard, one of the 3 Stooges, is what we were looking for. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, I do know. Yeah.
Mo, Larry, and who was the third one? Albert, do you know the name of the third?
Curly.
Curly is correct.
Curly?
Wow, really, really, really good. All right, you're off to a hot start. I love it.
Good job, Albert. Good job.
Yeah, good job. Hey, smash the like button for us, and we'll get underway here. I do think this is one of those days where there is a ton going on, and some of it is the pot boiler that is what's happening domestically and also internationally. First, the legal cases for Donald Trump. Appeals court is now saying that Trump can keep control over the California National Guard troops. As you know, the troops were deployed to L.A. following protests over the immigration raids. There was opposition from Governor Newsom, also opposition from Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. And the typical way in which troops would be deployed would be through the governor's request. Even the president generally would work through the governor or in conjunction with the governor. In this case, they bigfooted the governor. They view the governor of California and the mayor of Los Angeles as impediments to a policy that they feel must be implemented. These, I'm going to call them cruel, deliberately cruel, brutal ICE raids that are occurring all over Southern California. They're occurring in restaurants. They're taking place on soccer fields. They're taking place in agricultural regions where so many are there to pick the harvest. So it's and deliberately cruel to have the chilling effect, right? The stories around these ICE detentions are both heartbreaking and also sobering. I'll give you the sobering part first. The detention centers are apparently horrible when it comes to health standard, when it comes to the number of people being parked there, stored there, warehoused there. And now they are requiring the congressional leadership that wants in to inspect these various detention centers. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, in the form of Kristi Noem, is saying, if you want to inspect these places, great, we need 72 hours notice. And we also have the complete ability and option to decline your visit even after we've approved it. In other words, once the 72nd hour rolls around and you're there to move in and see what's going on and inspect it, we can always pull that authorization. Again, guys, this represents a real change in America. This is a change and a flavor of America that nobody voted for. I understand that overwhelmingly the immigration issue is what propelled Trump to power, immigration and inflation.
Mm-hmm.
But what was masquerading as the border issue is actually a despicably cruel and aggressive immigration deportation policy that is taking up workers who are a vital part of the American economy and also represent, in the main, complete law-abiding residents of this country. In other words, they are taking, by overwhelming numbers, those who aren't violent criminals, don't have a criminal history, don't have any gang affiliations. They're taking those who are working quite earnestly in jobs across the occupational spectrum, everything from agricultural workers to fashion workers to, seamstresses, landscapers, and even those who aren't in the workforce. Where's the story about the 19-year-old? Let me just read this to you quickly. I could read so many stories like this. A 19-year-old named Emerson Colindres, supposed to be a routine check-in for him with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and then it was a trap. 19 years old, never returned home.
No.
Came to the United States with his family more than a decade ago. He wasn't even 10 years old when he came here to escape violence in Honduras. He was detained by ICE on June 4th, days after this talented student and soccer player graduated from high school in Cincinnati, Ohio. His teammates said he was one of the greatest players they met on the field. Dreamed of continuing his sports career, hoped to attend a university. He didn't have a criminal record. In the span of 2 weeks, he went from celebrating his graduation to being detained by ICE and then being deported to a country he has not lived in since he was 8 years old. I mean, he's not the only law-abiding high school student who's been targeted by ICE. They are everywhere. They swept up students in New York City, in Milford, Massachusetts, in Riverside, California. This is wrong.
I saw a story out of Southern California that these gardeners were snatched while they were mowing the lawn.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if they, drove by looking for yard workers or what. It happened Thursday. The folks were mowing the lawn outside of a house in Ontario, California, and the neighbors witnessed this man being taken into custody. They called the homeowner and said your gardener was just taken. They apparently left the lawnmower running right there on the front lawn, threw the gardener's phones in the work truck along with the car keys to the work truck, left everything open and just took off. That's it.
It is so horribly brutal what's happening, and it's clearly in response to a quota and a command from Miller. You heard for a moment that Trump seemed to get clarity on how damaging it would be to the American economy when he said, we're going to stay away from those businesses concerned with agriculture. We're going to stay away from those businesses concerned with tourism, hotel business. But then quickly changed, and the next day was, no, we're going to go after everything actually just as aggressively, if not more aggressively. That was after a conversation with Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller, apparently. But it is grotesque, and it's un-American. And these people come here, and they may be potentially the best of America, and now they're being deported. And it does seem disproportionately the Latino community is being affected. There was that story about the LA Dodgers not letting ICE in. I mean, 40% of their fan base is Latino. So you understand how the Dodgers can feel responsible to their fan base on some level. I mean, those who, help buoy that franchise. But that was a gutsy move. It was late in coming. I mean, when ICE first moved into Los Angeles in the heavy-handed way that they have, and now with National Guard and Marines and all this other stuff, the Dodgers were quiet. But now it appears that the Dodger organization at least is saying something. So there's that.
I saw this story about Latino voters who, many of whom supported Trump. And this focus group that was done, I think by NBC, showed that Latino Trump voters are feeling differently about deportations than the MAGA people. But even so, they still are backing Trump. So they might not agree with the deportation thing and what's happening, but they're not pulling their support.
Well, send me that piece. I mean, I think I'm seeing a lot of it on one level. But I always like to see those polls and like to see even anecdotal stuff like that. I mentioned to you when I was on the radio in Los Angeles, it was less than a week ago, got a caller who said, I voted for Trump. I'm married to a woman who is not an American citizen. That was a little weird because if you're married, you should be. Maybe he said I'm with my longtime partner, whatever he might have said. I thought he said I'm married to, but anyway, he said, but now he's gone too far. He said, I voted for Trump, but this is just too much. And this is excessive, pretty much by any yardstick, but it is, I'd suggest these deportations. And if you look at, who's being deported, I told you about the soccer player. It's devastating. It's devastating to read these stories. It's absolutely devastating. And I mentioned to you, my friend who's been in this country for 30 years, she's here illegally. That is to say, without proper documentation. She told me that they moved into an entire apartment building, ICE did, and took everybody. I mentioned that to you yesterday. So, and then she said that, and in other buildings in her area, they've done similar things. It's too much. Breaking fake news, says Trevor Starr in Hollywood, effective immediately. All drinks at Dodger Stadium will be served with no ice. I get it. No ice. Yes. All right. Yes. Thank you for the 1010 super chat. Noe Marie, hadn't heard from her in a second. $10 super chat. She says, please reach out to immigration law expert Naomi Rod Ariaza of UC San Francisco Law. USA policies lead to problems in Honduras and Guadalajara specifically that have led to an influx of immigrants. I don't know if you mean Guadalajara, Mexico. Interesting. Will you note that, Kim? Maybe we can get in touch with Naomi.
I will.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Always appreciate, we try to, if you suggest somebody for a booking, we look into it and try to make it happen. So thanks for that. That's just a quick look at this wildly aggressive immigration policy, which again, and this is the last thing, I just want to kind of bookend my thought about this so it underscores something. The border is what really won the day with Trump. The border policy, if you will, the open border of the libs, of the socialists, of the Biden administration, et cetera. There was a stream of immigrants coming across that southern border, particularly, right? So when you then take an aggressive immigration policy, and aggressive immigration policy is almost, I'm halting because it's almost too kind a way to describe it. It's a malevolent, aggressive, wanton, utterly cruel immigration policy where you're grabbing everybody who looks Latino and you're grabbing them in the most aggressive, brutal fashion. That is a distinctly different thing from the border policy. The southern border policy, which again propelled this guy to the presidency, is being conflated with the immigration policy of this country, and you end up with everyone kind of scratching their heads. Oh, I voted to stop the flow of immigrants into the southern border. I didn't vote for Pedro, the 15-year-old who's lived next door for 10 years, came here when he was 5, to be dragged by his collar into a white van by a bunch of guys who are disguised in black outfits with no markings whatsoever, and we never hear from Pedro again. This is being played out over and over and over again, and it is un-American. It is absolutely a change in American policy. And these people have no linkage, repeatedly, time and time again, no linkage to any criminal element or gang-affiliated activity. That's not who they're going after. You don't get gang members at Home Depot, mother effers. You don't get gang members raiding some kitchen. This is a bogus BS policy, and you lean in with your fake military crap. Kristi Noem with her cosplay, wearing her outfit, making these pronouncements. We're here to liberate Los Angeles. What, from the 4 blocks of disturbance in downtown Los Angeles? Are there bigger disturbances when the Lakers win a championship or win just their division? There are bigger demonstrations when the Dodgers win the World Series. You don't send the National Guard or Kristi Noem or the Marines during that crap. It's obscene. And these ICE agents are clearly being instructed to be deliberately cruel because they are going out. There they are. Look at them with all their camo, hiding their faces.
That's Kristi Noem there in the front of that house.
Yeah. Leading, but look at the guy on the left. Can't tell who he is.
No.
Just says police.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and if ever there was a situation that set up the kind of abduction you can get away with by just putting police on some part of your outfit, even if you want to do that, you don't even have to do that. You can just fake police your way into abducting whoever you want. These are scary times, and they're being enabled by this woman here and this policy here. It's absolutely, and when I see something like this, John Smith says, this is part of a bigger effort. You have to think of the long game. I agree. It serves several masters, to use the phrase, right? It serves the immediate, which is just, I think, a racist policy. I don't think it's underpinned by any, they're a drag on the economy. No, these are people, this workforce is paying taxes, and they're not getting benefits, and they don't vote. So I don't understand this, they're coming here, the Democrats want them for their vote. Their vote? They don't vote. They're not here legally. How can they vote?
They can't.
And the other thing is, they don't want to go anywhere near a place where there are officials of the government because they're here illegally. But again, it's a gray area.
Yeah.
It's a gray area because they're such a big part of the American economy. So, but again, the long game can also have to do with dominating blue cities, occupying blue states, an occupation force that has a feeble excuse to move into these regions and then stays there. There is a dominance that is established by control of the military, and you're seeing that flex also. So, and if you're counting on the courts to save you, Kim just mentioned that or maybe I mentioned it. I can't keep track of who mentions what on this show. But we just told you that the courts say, hey, Trump's allowed to have control of the National Guard.
Which is really scary because we were talking to David Katz yesterday, a former federal prosecutor and now defense attorney in Los Angeles. And he was saying that, that he was hopeful. He didn't think it would happen, but he was hopeful that this ruling wouldn't come down this way, that the judges would have some, be able to look into the future a little bit and see what this means for other cities, other states in the United States, and how this could be used in a really bad, sinister way. So it's frustrating, because if he can keep control of the National Guard in California, it means he can do it across the United States, right?
Exactly. And I think that's what, when that commenter was saying, playing a long game, I think that's exactly what is in play here, Citizen Swain says they already face discrimination because of their non-legal status. People get them to work and then don't pay them, or pay them less than promised. To jump in on the least successful among us is just beyond. Exactly. I mean, it is true. And you find that also across the board in different businesses. I'm remembering, and I think I may have made this point before, but I'll just quickly make it again. You'll remember during COVID how the slaughterhouses became, they call them meat packing plants, I think. They found that the word slaughter, it just doesn't brand well. Yeah, it just doesn't. The branding, can we change the name? Slaughter is just so on the nose.
It just sounds really rough.
Call it meat processing, something like that. So the meat processing plants, they were these festering cauldrons of COVID-19. And people were getting sick, and it was really effing them up. And so they didn't go to work. And President Trump, this is season 1 of the Trump presidency, first 4 years, right? He forced them open, called them essential workers, and also indemnified the owners of these slaughterhouses / meat processing plants from any legal action that might result from forcing the workers back into, as I've mentioned, this festering pot of COVID-19, which was the inside of these slaughterhouses. I mean, just because of the proximity with which they work next to each other and the way that these plants are set up, I guess the COVID-19 transmission rate was just way off the scale. Yeah. So you consider them essential work. And by the way, everybody got sick. It was a horror show.
And most of them were Latino folks.
Yes, thank you. And that's kind of the point, that they are Latino and they are also here undocumented. And that is the backbone of the meat processing slaughterhouse world, okay? And it's funny that on the one hand, you consider them essential workers, you force them back to work in a situation that will likely make them sick, and now you're plucking them out of their apartment house and you're sending them to some gulag. It's horrible, and it's unacceptable, and it's un-American, and bravo for all of those who push back on this. It's a real reckoning at this moment in this country.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Meantime, here is Luis who says, these are all the Dodgers players. Half the team, he says. Do you want to read this, Albert? You are the commissioner. This is a comment related to the baseball team, the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, Teoscar Hernandez, Kiki Hernandez, Shohei Ohtani, Roki, all of them. The Dodgers probably have the most impressive roster, and they're almost completely, even their first baseman, Freddie Freeman, who looks like he's just a normal white guy, is from Canada. So they're actually almost all completely immigrants. So.
And so what is he saying? Do you want to read the
have our teams are foreign born, good thing all can just purchase that 5 million Trump gold card.
Yeah, that's right. Just to get a citizenship with a 5 million. Yeah. Yeah. Hashtag American way. Thank you, Luis. Ain't it true?
Can we roll back for just a moment about when we're talking about the National Guard and how the appeals court says, yeah, Trump can federalize the National Guard, and the governor of whatever state doesn't really need to say, we'd like your help. Trump can just take control and it's okay. The thinking is that possibly this is how he takes control during the next election.
Right. there are a couple of ways in which he could affect the next election. First of all, I'm leaving out the technical manipulation, which I feel had something to do with the last
Yeah.
election. I don't believe that Trump carried 7 swing states. I just don't believe it. I think that there is enough evidence that's coming to the surface, and it ranges from good old-fashioned voter suppression to data manipulation. And we are going to get into this in the weeks ahead on this channel, so I hope you'll catch that episode, and of course we'll drop it as a separate video. But the other way in which you can influence election is you can put a lot of cops, Marines, Army members, members of the military on the streets to protect the various polling stations. These are things that are intimidating, especially now when you see the wide berth that these guys are given to just pick up anybody. I mean, they're arresting and throwing down to the pavement as they arrest them and zip tie them American citizens. I mean, legislators. So all of a sudden, it's like, I don't even want to leave the house, man. These guys are out of their minds. They've been, we identified one of them as a Proud Boy. I mean, this is, in part anyway, guys who kind of get off on the violence. And so I'm not looking forward to that period around the election during which I think we will see this presence that you're talking about. So I see all of these ways in which you can suppress the vote and influence the vote. If that's what you're getting at, I mean, I completely agree. Yeah.
Well, there's what's to stop him from seizing voting machines? They said there's something wrong with the voting machines last time, right? Tried to send police in there to isolate the voting machines or whatever. I mean, they could do anything if they have the National Guard in every single state federalized. I don't know. My mind goes to dark places, Mark.
It's true. And just to kind of round out that point on the voting machines, as you're aware, those voting machines in a couple of cases were surrendered. In a couple of cases of 2 different states were surrendered to people who really didn't even have any kind of official capacity. They were kind of involved in their own independent investigation. Anyway, and in an official investigation. Point being, they surrendered with those machines, coding and software specifics and details, all of which was jacked, and then it was laid out on the internet, so anybody could get access to it. So we've always kind of felt state by state, because it's not a federalized election, it's 50 different elections. We've always felt in a way safer because these things aren't necessarily easily manipulated because all of these states do it differently. But increasingly you're seeing an open door to a lot of corruption, even with the American elections. And I think we've seen it in the last election, and I think we're going to see it again in all the ways that you just described. They can seize voting machines in districts where it looks like Trump's going to lose. They can seize voting machines in places where it looks like the GOP candidate is going to lose. I mean, the GOP is pretty ruthless right now. And if you are GOP, I'm not necessarily talking about you. I'm talking about I'm going to give you credit for perhaps caring about certain things from a policy standpoint that rubbed you the wrong way about the Democrats. Maybe you were pushing back against wokeism. Maybe you were pushing back against a lot of concepts that you felt were being too aggressively laid on the American public. I'm talking about everything, cultural wedge issues, So maybe that motivated you to register as GOP or vote GOP. But what I'd suggest now is that those who are in charge, to Kim's point, will do anything to retain power. And that we are seeing in more and more aggressive ways, and that may include seizing voting machines in the next election.
Well, he tried to do it last time, so what's to, it's not a stretch that he could try to do it again.
Yeah. How do we escape the irony that Dems' big argument and due process is what we need these immigrants, and is that we need these immigrants and who will work in exploitive conditions, by the way. Thank you, Knowing Marie, the $5 super chat. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of making that point with the meat processing place. I mean, you need people there to work both there in the agricultural fields, et cetera, and Americans aren't doing those jobs. And, again, you can crash parts of the economy this way. And I think Trump doesn't care, especially if it's a blue city. But these are big constituencies. And I would just say one last thing when it comes to California, particularly when it comes to agriculture. Vilma says, where's my, and I'll get to it in a second, where's my American Cesar Chavez? Immigrants need someone like Cesar Chavez to speak for them because immigrants can't. Thank you, Vilma, for the $5 super chat. Look, they just arrested Huerta, is it? The union leader in Los Angeles, right, David?
Mhm.
And he's a huge union leader. So when you say, where's your Chavez? That he really is sort of, I don't want to say I put him on the level of Chavez, but he was and is a real shining light to many union workers. That's why that detaining of that man was so damaging, I think.
David Huerta, president of the SEIU, arrested June 6th while he was acting as a community observer, now faces charges for allegedly impeding federal officers during this operation.
Sure, that's the way they do it. They go, if you're just observing, if you're just around, you're impeding, you're obstructing. And so, again, this guy is not Chavez, but he is a luminary. He is a high-profile figure in the working class communities of Latinos across the healthcare industry, across the service industry. So I think this did mobilize a lot of union workers. The problem is they are hell-bent, this administration, on pushing this policy through with a Marine presence, with a National Guard presence, and with local officials on some level being overwhelmed by the Fed's presence. I mean, ICE I think they are the new Gestapo. I'm sorry, they have Gestapo tactics, and I hate to use these analogs and these parallels to Nazi Germany, but I think they are like the Stasi. They arrest first, and they do it in a brutal takedown way, and they ask questions later. And we've seen it happen. I mean, in the earliest days of this, which was not long ago, they deported a bunch of people to El Salvador, to a notorious prison, many of whom had done nothing. They even admit that they deported a bunch of people by mistake, but they didn't want to bring them home. They brought one of them back. So it's concerning. All right. I need to move on to got to get to the, if we don't have, I didn't see that. If we don't have, anyway.
No, we don't have secure voting. Everything we talk about is useless because we all go vote and it doesn't count.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, as I said, the vote is already something that's very threatened in this country and has been in many ways historically for as long as we've had a vote, right? First, they exclude blacks. And only white people can vote. Only white landowners can vote. And only men can vote. Right? I mean, you just go back as long as you want. You can find ways in which the vote has been suppressed, and we always feel as though, well, we're evolving toward one person, one vote, but not really. There's always the effort to suppress the vote, reducing the number of voting places, right? Polling places. That happened across Texas, and we've seen just the ways in which they've stripped the ability to vote away from people, and they continue to do it. And this is the agenda of the GOP, particularly. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Also wanted to talk about what's going on in Iran. By the way, J.D. Vance is going to travel to L.A., apparently. We don't hear much from J.D. Vance, but nice that he's jumping on board, too. Hey, Marines and National Guard and, everybody else is there. Why not add J.D. Vance into the toxic brew that is the crew that is in Los Angeles?
He's going to come deliver a speech. We needed that,
Yeah, we are one speech away from feeling good about life. That's exactly right. By the way, a judge is blocking the Trump plan to tie transportation funds to immigration enforcement. So there is that. Yeah. And, Trump has basically said, hey, you don't play ball with immigration, we're going to pull all the transportation money from you. Judge is saying, no, cannot do that. And the appeals court, just because to round out the legal side, the appeals court in the E. Jean Carroll case is saying that Trump, this is such a sleazy, but it's such a classic Trumpian move. He cannot
Mhm.
move the case to the federal government in such a way that the American taxpayer pays the $83 million defamation judgment. Yeah. So it was a panel of judges on the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals denying his request to have the Justice Department lawyers argue in his appeal on this defamation case. He wanted no more, is it my lawyers and on my dime? I want the power of the U.S. Justice Department to handle this for me. So again, he's ordered to pay $83.3 million in damages for defaming E. Jean Carroll in 2019 when he denied her accusation that he sexually assaulted her and, called her a liar and all these other things that are associated with defamation. But now he'll have to take care of that case alone. I don't think he's got any problem coming up with the money. He's got the meme coin. He's got billions of dollars. He's got money flowing in from all of these sources into that world of crypto and beyond. He has all the contributions that have been funneled into the Trump organization and into his pockets because people want to get the president's attention and they want to play ball with the president. He's got many, many businesses internationally that are now enriching him in ways that he had never even calculated in his first term. Now, I want to get to what's going on in Iran.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The Israel-Iran conflict.
Mm-hmm.
There will be no talks with the U.S. if Israel continues attacks. That from the foreign minister of Iran. The Americans have sent serious messages asking for serious talks, he said, but we have no words for America. He said that the U.S. is part of Israel's crimes and aggression against Iran. In a separate interview with the BBC, the deputy foreign minister warned that there would be hell for the whole region if the U.S. joined Israel's attacks on the Islamic Republic. This war is not America's war, he said. But if they want to get into this war, President Trump will be remembered forever for the war that is not his war. They at the same time, and we'll discuss this obviously with Avila in just a few minutes, they at the same time, this administration, as they contemplate whether or not to get into potential military involvement in the form of U.S. strikes, that you've heard about the bunker buster bomb, etc. At the same time that they're considering this, and we're told that the president's going to have a 2-week window to decide. He always has a 2-week window. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but on the Russia thing, he had a 2-week window. He had a 2-week window in Trump season 1 on his healthcare plan. In about 2 weeks, I'm going to announce it. It's always 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. I don't think he knows what he wants to do.
No. He's got another big national security meeting today, so maybe, he's gathering information, Mark. He's gathering intel from the very best sources.
I will tell you that, funny you should mention this, because in navigating this Iran crisis, Trump is not going to his intel community per se. He's not going to the Department of Defense head, Pete Hegseth. He sees that they know nothing. They are part of the show. He cast Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth as part of the show. He cast Jeanine Pirro as part of the show. He casts these people who are pure sycophants. He cast them as part of the show, but he also sees the utterly shallow nature of Pete Hegseth. He sees that he's an empty vessel. He sees that he's a mess. He sees that he's on a public forum like Signal Chat, an unsecured communication platform like Signal Chat. And so when it comes to this, there's good reporting on this. As Trump faces a critical decision about whether to join Israel's military strikes against Iran's nuclear program, this is from the Washington Post, perhaps the most momentous in his presidency, neither Tulsi Gabbard or Pete Hegseth are playing starring roles as members of Trump's inner circle of advisors. And by the way, I wish the press wouldn't say starring roles and stuff like it. Just cheapens the conversation. This isn't a show, man. This is really important. Trump treats it all like a show. He's into the theater. But it would be nice if you journalists would just talk about critical roles instead of starring roles. Anyway, Trump instead has turned to a small group of lower key but more experienced aides. The, quote, Tier 1 group advising on a potential U.S. strike on Iran is composed of Vice President J.D. Vance, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and CIA Director John Radcliffe. Together, this quartet is helping Trump as he decides whether to launch weapons that only the United States possesses to target nuclear enrichment sites in Iran. So as they meet, it's interesting to me that he's not calling on a Hegseth. Hegseth runs the effing military. And he's not involved in what would be the biggest military commitment of Trump's presidency. It just speaks to the fact that he knows he's fielded a clown show.
I actually find that comforting. Good. Keep him out of it.
But whether or not he'll reach the right conclusion, again, it's being filtered through Trump's mind. Now, I will say this. He has lost a bunch of the MAGA base. We spoke of this yesterday on some level. There's a bunch of the MAGA base that is associated with wanting Trump to be clear of any wars, having bought into the Trump BS about I'm going to end all wars. I'm not going to get America involved in any wars. And then there's a bunch of the MAGA base that's associated with the Christian right, for example, that very much wants to get us involved in the war. Huckabee is an example of that. I mean, he's a Christo-fascist, and he's the one who is dealing, I think he's the ambassador to Israel. So he has a place at the table in this conversation. So Trump is being pulled in this way, but if you look at polling, overwhelmingly, it's not popular to get involved. So when he looks at polls, and Trump is all about that, he sees that popularity, even among the MAGA faithful, is just not there for American involvement. That's why I think he won't get involved. But he's also so susceptible to the last person he spoke with. He's also very susceptible to the biggest propaganda machine perhaps in American history, and that's Fox News Channel. And Fox News Channel is rah, 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 war, war, war. We got to do this. We got to jump on these Iranians before they get this stuff. We've been hearing about the Iranian enrichment program for years. They're always a heartbeat away from getting a nuclear weapon. I'm not saying they're not. But I am saying that this moment in time seems to have been informed by a lot of things that maybe didn't pertain directly to whether or not Iran was close to getting a bomb. For example, the Israelis note that Iran is diminished in the region, right? They don't have the Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. They were decapitated by the Israeli response to October 7th. They don't have Syria anymore. You don't have Assad, a client state there anymore. He's gone, right? Even the Houthis are diminished a bit. By the way, just because I mentioned that, so they picked this time, I think, because they felt we can catch a weakened Iran right now. And I've left out the fact that Iran was militarily weakened because of the last exchange with Israel, again, related to October 7th. I did want to mention, just because I talked about the Houthis, did you see the post-mortem literally on that the Houthi thing, the signal chat thing that they were talking about, the way that they were going to, I don't know if I put it in the rundown, Albert. I don't know if I did. I think I just had read the piece about just what a failure it was. The idea somehow that, Hegseth is talking about what a great victory it was. We went after the Houthis. That was the signal chat stuff that we were all reading about. He was sharing with his wife and his brother and, anybody who had come to Thanksgiving who was on that signal chat. He was telling them about this attack on the Houthis. And when questioned about it, all he talked about was, no one wants to talk about the success of the mission. It's all the mainstream media after this great successful mission. Well, finally, in testimony yesterday, he was called out on it. He was called out on it in a big way. The fact that it wasn't a successful mission. It didn't reopen any shipping lanes. So the abysmal failure where we lost a couple of, was it Hornet fighters, and we lost American hardware to the tune of $200 million. It was a failure. It was a profound failure, Pete Hegseth. So anyway, it's in this all that Trump has to make a decision about whether or not the Americans should be involved in this. So, and again, I return to the fact that we had a deal with Iran. There was an Iran nuclear deal, wasn't perfect, but it was in place, and it did seem to be some governor on their ability to enrich uranium and pursue a weapon-guided development of nuclear capabilities. It was signed by Barack Obama and then ripped up by Donald Trump in season 1 of his entire crazy presidency, in which he just went after everything that Obama did and pulled us out of it. And now he's trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again, and he can't. So that's what's happening in Iran. We are waiting. We're on a 2-week loop. The other thing I just want to mention in international relations is associated with Putin and Xi. Dateline St. Petersburg and Beijing. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping both condemning Israel yesterday over strikes on Iran and agreeing that de-escalation is needed. Putin and Xi's strong condemnation of Israel's action indicates that they violated the UN chapter and other norms of international law. That's pretty rich coming from Putin. Both Moscow and Beijing fundamentally believe that there is no military solution to the current situation and issue warnings to let diplomacy prevail. Diplomacy may prevail in the end. We will see. Again, there was a diplomatic solution already in place, and he tore it up. And I'll remind you that our lead diplomat in all of this is, what's his name again, Kim?
Witkoff.
Witkoff, who's a real estate mogul. He is a billionaire real estate mogul. Witkoff is. He plays golf with Donald Trump. He knew Donald Trump from that world of real estate, and he became our lead negotiator on Russia-Ukraine, on Iran-Israel. It is, once again, the power of incompetence. But if you're a pal of Trump, or you suck up enough, or you're on TV, you may have a shot at being in his administration. So that is that. There is a crypto exchange that pro-Israel hackers destroyed. They destroyed $90 million worth of crypto holdings. An anti-Iranian group known as Predatory Sparrow claimed the attack. Second operation in 2 days. They destroyed nearly 90 million of crypto holdings and threatened to expose the platform's source code. They claimed credit for this attack, make it the second operation in 2 days, they say. Tuesday, the group claimed to have destroyed data at Iran's state-owned bank SEPA during the time that there were increasing hostilities and missile attacks between Israel and Iran. And then Wednesday, they targeted Novatex, which is one of Iran's largest cryptocurrency exchanges. This, you might say, well, what is that, just cryptocurrency? Why is that important? Remember, cryptocurrency is the dark world in which you can, if you're a leader being sanctioned by the international community, see Russia, see Iran, you can avoid sanctions because you can pay and move money through the crypto world. And that's exactly what Iran was doing. So they finance terrorism around the world and they avoid sanctions in this crypto world. The hackers claimed that between the two operations, it was $90 million that was derailed. So that's the other thing that's going on at the same time. I guess that's it. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's noon. We're going to have to move to Friday Fabulous Florida.
Kim, as usual, has noted that we need to move to Friday Fabulous Florida. She moves it into our view a little bit late, if I can say that.
I blame you.
Well, I did. I know you probably didn't want to interrupt me, and I respect that.
I didn't. You're on a roll.
All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right. Look, let's get a hold of ourselves, okay? First of all, and now,
how does the internet work?
I'm not quite sure how anything works, but I did want to say that I haven't even gotten to my marijuana story. God, there's a huge marijuana story, and I'll get to it a little bit later.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Dude, it's serious. It's serious, dude. If you're a marijuana user, what do the kids call it now, Albert? They call it pot. They call it grass. They call it hooch. What is marijuana called now?
All of those. I'm not really a youth anymore, Mark. I'm not sure.
You're
what
not
the
connected to the young
it,
people anymore, are you, Albert? Yeah. Sad to watch my Albert grow up, Kim.
Albert, thank you.
He's growing right up. Look at him.
Yeah. He's got a girlfriend, probably get married someday soon. And I don't
maybe
know.
Kush. People call it Kush.
Oh,
maybe?
people call it Kush. Okay. Sure.
Obi-Wan says that's the devil's lettuce.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Stay at home and get baked.
Yeah. All right. Latin lettuce. I love that. I love that. Somebody told me that they call cocaine now Calvin.
Why?
And when young people, I say young people, I don't know the young people, I don't know why I even said that. When the young people do the cocaine and they do it with ketamine, they call it Calvin for the cocaine, Klein for the ketamine. Calvin Klein. Yes, I know. It's pretty.
What?
I know.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I'm here simply to report. That is it. Albert has curated a Friday Fabulous Florida. Have you not, sir?
I have, with the help of our viewers and Kim as well. A lot of good suggestions here for a
one
great
of the
segment.
most prolific contributors is Tammy, wouldn't you say?
Tammy loves to send her Florida stories.
Yeah. Tammy is one of our viewers. Some of the stuff we can't use, but all of the stuff we do review. So without any further delay, although that is the cornerstone of this show, delaying, let's do it. This is a palate cleanser to all that ails you in the news. We take a brief timeout from Iran, from ICE, from the craziness of Washington, and we do Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
A Florida man broke into a random house, ran the bath, cooked dinner, all to avoid going home to his angry wife. I love it. I love that.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
He traded the ball and chain for handcuffs, though, as noted here. A Florida man broke into a random house, hung out there for several days to avoid going home to his angry wife after the couple had a fight. It happened in Polk County. Sheriff's deputies ultimately called to the home in Davenport by a neighbor who was tasked with watching over the place while the homeowner was away. Noticed a flurry of suspicious activity. And that flurry reflected the fact that he was there.
His wife must have been really upset.
Running the bath, making food. The 44-year-old explained that he had got into a fight with his wife 4 days earlier and broke into the random house to avoid returning home to face her wrath. He was still charged with felony, unarmed burglary, misdemeanor petty theft, and domestic battery. Well, I don't know what happened with the domestic battery part, but sounds like it got a little ugly.
Yeah.
but he did get 4 days before all the ugliness came down on top of him. Florida DMV employees are busted for issuing illegal licenses. They've uncovered a driver's license scheme in which hundreds, if not more than 1,000 licenses, including some commercial driver's licenses, were issued in exchange for bribes.
Oh, what kind
Good
of bribes?
old-fashioned corruption.
Money, drugs, cash, gold bars?
This looks like it was financial compensation. So,
okay.
yeah. Good old-fashioned financial compensation. 8 arrests following a month-long investigation into 2 State Department of Motor Vehicle employees who supposedly have provided driver's licenses to individuals who had not met the statutory requirements.
At the DMV. Wow.
Yeah, is nothing sacred. The employees were compromised and were being financially compensated to provide individuals with driver's licenses. They were, yes, that's it. See that last window on the left for your driver's license that you wouldn't be qualified to have otherwise. A St. Pete man accused of making more than 16,000 false 911 calls targeting neighbors. Well, they tell you do what you love. Am I right, people? Yeah. If you like calling 911 on the neighbors, you found your thing. 16,000 seems like a lot of your thing. Many of these calls over the past 5 years are not emergencies. Well, just breaking news.
It's a fun neighborhood. Cops
Samuel
down
Thomas is the one responsible for this.
Look at his face. I'm going to give that a 9. That's fantastic.
He looks angry.
He got a smirk going on there. Like, I'm going to call 911 on you again.
Photos. Yeah. He looks annoyed, for sure.
Yeah.
This year alone, and we're only in June, he's already made 3,000 calls.
Oh, my God. That must be all he does. He has no time for anything else.
Apparently. I do notice sometimes if the music is too loud, he will start calling and cussing and raising hell, said one neighbor. The tipping point came when he reported someone firing an AR-15 in the street. But when police arrived, they found children playing in a yard and a family enjoying a barbecue. You're reporting that somebody's shooting an AR-15? We're going to send a lot of resources out to see what's going on instead of just 1 or 2, the emergency communications person said. And it can be extremely dangerous, especially for the neighbors. Dispatcher said that more than 600 calls have been made from him targeting the same home. So he has it against one neighbor in particular.
John says, I admire his stick-to-itiveness.
Exactly. Again, you got to do what you love. He is being charged, as I say. Now, we don't want to pick a favorite, but we are required in the bylaws of the show to pick a favorite in Friday Fabulous Florida. I'll remind you what they are. The Florida man who broke into a random house, ran the bath, cooked dinner, all to avoid going home to his angry wife, was there in the house for 4 days. Florida DMV employees busted for issuing illegal licenses, including commercial vehicle licenses. And the St. Pete man accused of making more than 16,000 911 calls targeting neighbors. We need to pick a favorite. I'll ask you, Kim.
I'm going with the smirking 911 caller. I feel that's pretty 16,000. 3,000 alone just in the dinner hour. I'm going to go with that guy.
Yeah, he's an overachiever.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. How about you, Alvaro? What did the crew like? What did the crowd like?
The crowd likes both the 911 call and the guy who had the angry wife. I'm going with the guy who's avoiding the angry wife. I think if he just had permission from that other guy at the other house, there'd be no charges. Like he's helping himself to a bath, but he's also helping cook. He's probably helping around the house. So there's just one little adjustment, but I love that guy.
One little adjustment. It's not your house, and you had no approval to enter. Yeah. Apart from that, it was fine. This is a tough one because you don't have reptiles involved or anything like this. This is a little bit tough. I'm inclined to go with the 16,000 911 calls. I just think that is such a wild, wild story. Thanks, everyone. That's Friday Fabulous Florida for today.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
I'm inclined to do the
Mark Thompson Show.
I'm inclined to do the news quickly. I don't know if did you send Avila a link? We had Michael Shore out because, as you know, of the sad news about his dog, and we have Avila, who is, himself just getting back from the hospital, etc. So we're down a couple of people potentially. Although I'm happy to do this without them because I am brilliant in my own right.
Do you know who I am?
Just saying.
I'm kind of a big deal.
I hate to have to say it, but I'm just, I don't need these guys, okay? That's all I'm saying. In a way, they're props in my show,
Wow.
You understand.
I don't need these guys.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, Kim,
really
maybe it doesn't, you might not like it that I said it that way, but I mean, that's the way it is.
At the very beginning of the show about having a little bit more, I don't know, humbleness, did we not talk about that?
Humility is the word you're looking for, and I overflow with humility. But there's certain clear realities, one of which is I'm brilliant. Okay, let's just get it on the table. All right. I'm going to give Avila a little credit because he's a Murrow Award winner. He's an Emmy Award winner. He is a Peabody Award winner. He was a White House correspondent for ABC Network. He was the lead national correspondent for ABC.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it to Avila, okay?
Where's your Murrow Award?
I'm talking, Kim. I'm talking right now.
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
I'm going to give it to Avila because
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
He is brilliant. He's legit brilliant, okay? But I
love it when you're angry.
But the point I'm trying to make is that if something were to happen and Avila couldn't make it, I can tap my brilliance. I don't like to. I like to give other people the light, the limelight, the show. But if I had to, I could share, okay? Now, are you just about done, Kim?
Yeah.
Are you just about done?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Very, very good. Then.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I like to look back at the week that has just finished with a distinguished journalist who joins us every Friday. And I think he joins us from a recovery. He's recovering now. He just got out of the hospital. But we love our time with him. How about it for Jim Avila? He's the award-winning former. Now look at you! Wow, you look good. Actually, I love to see that smile. Yeah.
Well, I meant to turn the camera off, but there you go.
All right, well, we can turn it off for you if you prefer, can't we, Albert? If you would rather have it, can't you do that, Albert?
I can't do it for him, but if you see on the bottom of the screen, Jim, you have an option to stop your cam.
Yeah, you see, there you go. Yeah. Good.
So I mean, I'm not. I've got a beard. I mean, I am wearing my Cubs hat, which is good.
You felt you're not camera ready.
I was not camera ready. No.
Yeah. We love having you here. However, we get here. So thank you again for toughing it out. I also just feel like it's a real critical moment in time. So I'm going to start with the situation with Iran and Israel. And what I wanted to play for Jim is the remarks that Trump made on the front lawn of the White House as he was putting up more flagpoles. Can you run a little of that, Albert? In which he basically says, I don't know what I'm going to do, or I know, and only I know. And here is Trump. The guy standing behind him, for those watching there, as you probably are aware by now, we ran this the other day, but I just want to share it again. This is the flagpole, erection of the flagpoles. There are two new flag. Yeah, he didn't want to say the word erection. Go ahead, Albert.
Have you been answered questions about whether you are moving closer, or you believe the U.S. is moving closer to striking Iranian nuclear facilities? Where's your mindset on that?
I can't say that, right? You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear
component. And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate. And I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death and destruction. Why didn't you negotiate? I said to the people, why didn't you negotiate with me 2 weeks ago? You could have done fine. You would have had a country. It's very sad to watch this. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's so, everyone thought it was going to be the reverse. I didn't think so. And I was telling them, you gotta do something. You gotta negotiate. And at the end, last minute, they said, no, we're not going to do that. And they got hit. Remember 60 days? And then came the 60. 61 is going to become a very famous number. That was one hell of a hit. That first hit, that was one hell of a hit. Not sustainable, to be honest. That's where it ended. It ended on the first night. Yes.
Is it too late though? Do you think it's too late to now?
Really, nothing's too late. The only thing too late is Powell. Powell's too late. Too late, Powell.
Have the Iranians reached out to you, Mr. President?
What?
Have the Iranians reached out to you?
Yes.
And what did you say?
I said it's very late. I said it's very late to be talking. We may meet. It's. I don't know. There's a big difference between now and a week ago, right? Big difference.
Okay, it's never too late. So did they call you? Yeah, they called you. What did you say? I said that it's very late. Just there's an absurdity to a lot of what he says. He doesn't know. I think what he's going to do. He's playing the moment. I would just say this, Jim, and then I really want to hear what you have to say. But I would say that he's playing the moment, and at that moment, he's feeling as though the Israeli strike was so successful that he doesn't mind branding it as a Trump-related idea, that we gave them 60 days, and on the 61st day, this happened. Now I'd suggest, and as I've made this point over the last few days, that the popular support isn't there for American involvement. The MAGA support isn't there for American involvement. And so in response to that, he's modified his enthusiasm and even his rhetoric about what's happening there between Iran and Israel. But I'm very anxious to hear what you think.
Well, I was reading Dan Rather's column in Substack, and I think he was right on where he says that it's not his decision to make. The Constitution says that it's the Congress's decision to make. And it should be, before we strike another nation that hasn't attacked us, he has to go to Congress. And he hasn't done that. So he doesn't have any legitimate reason to do that. And for him to say, well, I don't know if I am, I'm not, it's not your call, buddy. And, it's like he's playing games out there. These are lives, and he's playing games. He likes to play with the press, and it's embarrassing, to have somebody like that making the real calls when it comes to the presidency. And it's really sad. It's not funny. He thinks it's all funny. It's not fun and games. It's all fun and games till somebody gets hurt, and somebody's gonna get hurt. We send over. First of all, sure, we can wipe out the Iranian. Well, we think we can. We can wipe out the Iranian nuclear issue, the nuclear
reactor. We may or may not be able to do that, but yeah,
right,
we think we can. Yeah,
we think we can do that. But you know what that's going to do? That's going to open up terrorism all over the place. And we don't need that. I want to be safe when well, that's a little unsure now too, but I'd like to be safe when I fly somewhere. And at first we got to fix our problems with the flying, but having terrorists, putting bombs in their shoes and that kind of thing, we don't need that. And that's exactly what he is inviting. There's no reason for us to attack Iran. We had a deal, not with Trump, but Obama struck a deal with him that would have rid the Iranians of their nuclear plants, and we didn't do that. Nuclear ability to make bombs.
Sure.
And we didn't do it, because he scrapped the whole deal because of his ego.
He tore up everything that was had Obama's name on it.
It was all because of his ego. So
Oh, I just lost
Name.
him a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Am I there?
No, you're good. You can talk right into the phone like it's a phone if you want. You don't have to hold it up. I don't know what you're doing, but I don't want you to have to worry about that.
What do you mean you know what I'm
but,
doing?
But let me just.
I don't
follow
know
up
what
on-
I'm doing. What are you talking about?
No, you're fine. You're fine. But let me just follow up on something you said, which is related to the kinds of retaliation that we might see that would maybe produce fear in the American populace, specifically these sort of sleeper cells that have been talked about. They're talked about in this country. They're talked about in other Western cities. So traveling Americans might be exposed to a kind of violence that they hadn't in the past. All of these things are both threatened and implied should anything happen to the supreme leader, that Ali Khamenei, and the supreme leader, as he's called, has been threatened directly by Trump, in that Trump said, well, we know where he is. We have no plans to take him out right now. And there's sort of this, it's the equivalent of what they're doing with these pizza deliveries across America, where, kind of, we know where you live. You better watch your step type thing.
He's playing games, Mark, and we can't play games like this. This is real life. This is, the stuff that we can't deal with, that we're not, foreign policy needs to be dealt with in a serious fashion. And he doesn't do that. He wants to play games, and it's really dangerous.
So, Jim, the other note that I had passed along in the first hour is related to the advisors that he's huddling with. I mean, we know he is essentially vacuous when it comes to the Middle East history, the history of these hostilities. He's concerned with, getting the Trump Hotel and Resort built along with the golf course in Qatar or whatever. I mean, he's got business there. But apart from that, he's not well informed on all of this. And so it's up to his coterie of advisors to inform him. So the head of the military, Pete Hegseth, who himself is an empty vessel, who's just kind of a show horse, he's out there with that look and with the strong rhetoric of the propaganda that kisses Trump's butt. He is out of it. He's not being consulted on Iranian policy and the policy of the Iran conflict as far as America is concerned. And the same is true of Tulsi Gabbard. I was just talking about this, is according to reporting from the Washington Post and other journalists in Washington. I wonder if you can speak to the way that now, as sort of the rubber meets the road in a more serious way, Trump knows that, there are those who are cast for the show and that there are those who he can talk to and maybe get some kind of reality of what's going on the ground.
Yeah, I think that the only serious people he has in the government is Marco Rubio, who I'm not a fan of, but at least he's, was on the Foreign Relations Committee. He's been working he's been at work in the government for years. Him at the State Department, which is good, but normally, Mark, the defense secretary doesn't deal with policy a lot anyway. The defense secretary normally is, okay, we've decided we're going to attack this country. Tell us how we do that the best way. Or we need to defend ourselves from this country. How do we do that in the best way? So even though he's, and I can use this word on your station, even though he's a douche, he's not a factor in the first place. So I wouldn't worry about him so much. But who else does he have? He got rid of his National Security Council. He is depending upon, he governs by whim. And, you can't, it's bad enough when you govern by whim domestically. But on foreign policy, it's downright dangerous. And, we're lucky right now that Putin is preoccupied because he'd be, have us in checkmate by this time against Trump. And I kind of think that's one of the reasons why Trump really hasn't tried very hard to fix the Ukrainian war, because he knows that right now his main adversary is busy. I'm wondering what China's doing, though. Is China ready? Is China ready to do something here? And they're a big concern, and they see a guy who's floundering, and I'm not sure what they're going to do.
It's interesting that you mentioned China, because I was talking about them right before you came on. China and Putin supposedly in a phone call both resolved in the statement that, negotiations have to prevail over any kind of military involvement with America. And so, I mean, it would be a violation of UN protocol. And I mean, it's very rich considering what Putin has done with Ukraine. But that was essentially their position.
And it's kind of wise. Isn't it? That's some wisdom there. That's what Trump ought to be doing, consulting with our allies, but he doesn't care for our allies because they present their own ideas, and he doesn't want to hear anybody else's ideas. He wants to decide it, as he says, at the last second. I decide at the last second. You know what? Yeah, how freaking dangerous is it to decide on world peace at the last second without consulting people? It's crazy.
Play, if you would, for Brother Avila, Albert, I thought in congressional testimony, in front of the Senate, the amateurism and incompetence of this administration was kind of laid bare. What do we like, Albert, first for Avila? Was it the... It almost doesn't matter. You can needle drop that entire thing. But, Jim, he was queried by senators, and I thought this takedown was pretty terrific. So we'll play you a little bit of this. This is Pete Hegseth testifying before the Senate this week.
Secretary Hegseth, you've had a tough start. At your confirmation hearing, my Democratic colleagues and I rightly questioned whether you had the requisite qualifications and experience to lead the DoD, the largest federal agency, especially given your checkered past, which included paying $50,000 in hush money to settle a sexual assault allegation against you and driving 2 veterans organizations into the ground. After only months on the job, our concerns about you have proven true, as far as I'm concerned. Instead of strengthening national security, you've turned the Pentagon into a dysfunctional mess. You are jeopardizing military operations and service members' lives with your unprecedented action of texting classified military plans to anyone who might stroke your ego. Leading the Department of Defense is more than just a PR campaign filled with photo ops. While you pose for cameras, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine continues unabated. Israel and Iran are also at war, in large part because your boss tore up a multilateral agreement former President Obama brokered with the UK, France, Germany, China, and Russia that curbed Iran's nuclear program and ambitions. Meanwhile, China advances in the Pacific as this regime undermines and attacks our allies.
Okay, that's good, Albert. Thank you. That's a little amazing, Hirono, who's the Hawaii senator. Play, Albert, one more cut, if you would, for Brother Avila. And I think you just get the feel for the fact that, again, a lot of the incompetence of Hegseth, what he's doing at DOD, the disenchantment of those who work at the Pentagon, and even the money, the dollars and cents part of the Pentagon is being questioned in a big way as well. So here's a little more from the Senate testimony that Hegseth made earlier this week.
Senator King.
Mr. Secretary, I'm somewhat puzzled. I grew up in Virginia where Robert E. Lee was
This is about
revered.
renaming the
I think when I was a kid, his birthday was a school holiday.
air bases
But as I
and the
grew
military bases.
older
Robert E.
and
Lee.
learned
is
more
who's
about
been-
American history, I learned that he fit the classic definition of a traitor. He took up arms against his country. He broke his oath as a member of the United States Army, which he took upon entering his career at West Point. Why are you going through these incredible gymnastics, finding current soldiers or other soldiers to rename? And you slipped a minute ago. You said we're returning these bases to their original names. Robert E. Lee, leading general of the Confederacy, Pickett, the other names. Why are you doing this? I don't understand what the motivation is to rename bases for people who took up arms against their country on behalf of slavery. What possible motivation can there be for this? Who is telling you to do this? Who is urging you to do this?
Senator, the veterans and service members across the country who have deployed from Fort Bragg or Fort Benning or Fort Hood or Fort Pickett, there's a legacy, there's a connection to those bases and to those places, to what they trained for there, what they did for, and what they came home back to. That matters to them. Ask enough of them, as I do all the time, before and later. And we recognize the service of those who were put into the replacement. No one's disputing that. I would never dispute that. What we're looking at is erasing history, erasing names, erasing base names that service members are tied to.
Not
Talk to people that serve at Bragg. Ask people that serve at Fort Bragg or Fort Benning if they like the fact that the names have been returned. And to a man and to a woman, they will tell you, thank God we're back to Fort Bragg, and thank God we're back. And thankfully, because so many men and women in this country have served, there's a Benning and a Bragg and a Pickett and a Hood has a Silver Star or a Medal of Honor that we could rename the base to because of the limits of what Congress allowed us to do. So this is something we've been proud to do, something that's important for the morale of the Army, and those communities appreciate that we've returned it back to what it was instead of trying to play this game of erasing names.
We're not erasing history, Mr. Secretary. We're recognizing history and recognizing that mistakes have been made in this country. The greatest of all was the Civil War, where people took up arms against their country on behalf of the institution of slavery. And to continue the practice of recognizing those people and honoring them by the naming of these bases is, I believe, an insult to the people of the United States. Let me talk about the budget.
So then he goes on to the
understand
budget,
why
the Pentagon budget is broken into two pieces, and Angus King goes on about sort of about that. I thought it was interesting just that it was addressed, the renaming of military bases, Jim, and it seemed to me also like there was a bit of BS there. I mean, which is, at least sort of the requisite amount whenever Pete Hegseth opens his mouth, and that is, if you ask people, to a man and to a woman, they want Fort Bragg to be called Fort Bragg, or they want the original Confederate soldier names or Confederate general names associated with this base. They want them reassociated, and I found that to be probably just not true. I mean, I just can't believe. First of all, I know that Hegseth doesn't go around asking all the troops what they think. And secondly, I'd have trouble believing that they care that much about, things are renamed all the time in this culture.
Well, I think this goes back to the original thing, Mark, of Make America Great Again. What does that mean? What does the Trump folks really think that means? It means, let's take it back to when the white folks were in charge. And, that there was no input from anybody else but the white folks. And, let's bring back the bases that have this Confederate meaning. The Confederates, they rebelled against the country. The same thing that some of these folks are doing. And they, they try, as Senator King points out, they tried to overthrow our government. And to even Robert E. Lee, who is recognized as a great general when it comes to tactics, that may be true, but he chose the wrong side, and he lost, and he was in fact a rebel, and we should treat him as such, and we should treat him as though he was a rebel who lost, and he does not get his name on anything. Statues should come down. This is not a woke thing. This is the thing that makes sense if you're an American. And his line of defense, he's gone around and talked to people, what does he have, a talk show somewhere?
Yeah, I don't believe that's right. That was clearly such BS. But it didn't stop there. Of course, Jackie Rosen was great, from Nevada. She was talking about anti-Semitic comments made by the Defense Department Press Secretary Kingsley Wilson. and she shared what the posts were during the hearing. But Hegseth said, since I don't believe the characterization of many officials in the news media, I would need to see precisely what's being characterized generally. This is as she was querying about, how do you feel about anti-Semitism and the endorsement of it from the Department of Defense. So she framed all of this quite effectively. And she said, Trump has been out front combating anti-Semitism, supposedly, and still your chief spokesperson is tweeting stuff that's anti-Semitic.
And don't forget, this is the Defense Department that tried to take the Tuskegee Airmen out of our military history. Anything that has to do with African Americans or Hispanics, they're going to take down.
It's an incredible thing when you think that with this Juneteenth celebration, and it's a new holiday, that the president said, I think we have too many holidays in this country. That was his comment yesterday. We have too many national holidays, and think about all the money that we're losing with all of these national holidays. This at the same time, within the last week, the Martin Luther King bust was taken out of the Oval Office. I think it might have been removed from the White House. So it's more to your point. I mean, there really is a dry cleaning going on that reflects, it's really pretty loathsome.
Yeah, it really is. And it's, what they're doing. So they want to return to the good old days when they were all in charge and nobody else was in charge. If you want that, fine. But they don't recognize that the demographics in this country have changed. And it's unfortunate that many of my fellow Latino brothers, especially the brothers, and the African American males didn't realize that before they cast their vote. And hopefully they're seeing it in firsthand, and that they'll try to get rid of that the next time around.
Well, I certainly hope that there'll be a free and fair next time around. Let me get you to something that it has me so angry, it has me depressed, and that's the random and utterly aggressive, brutal, grotesque deportations that are going on in America right now. There is not a criminal element being deported. These are innocent people from the standpoint of the work they do. Their daily life is made up of working in a lot of jobs that American citizens don't want in the main. Slaughterhouses, to agricultural fields, to the back of kitchens, to landscape jobs, to sanitation, even the healthcare industry. They work earnestly, and these people are being pulled out of these jobs. And by the way, it's not just workers, it is students. I mentioned a story last hour about a 19-year-old who was grabbed as he had just graduated. And these are people who've been in this country since they were 5 and 6 years of age, and they are being deported in brutal fashion, Jim. I know you've done a lot of reporting on immigration. The last thing I just want to say is I was making the point that the southern border of the U.S. and policy on the southern border has been conflated with the immigration policies of this administration, meaning a lot of people did respond to the fact that the border crisis was real. Many immigrants streaming across. Where were they going to go? What was going to happen? Was it a burden? Shouldn't there be a secure border on our southern flank? But what's happening with immigration policy and the deportations is not what was represented. This isn't a criminal element that's being deported. And so I think this part of the immigration policy is something that is giving Americans pause, even those who were concerned with immigration.
Yeah, even Donald Trump had to admit the other day that his buddies in the hotel industry, in agriculture, and other places are complaining to him that they're running out of workers because of what he's doing, and that he needs to stop. And he even kind of hinted that he's going to stop it a bit, with this, with sending home these people who are law-abiding people, not citizens, law-abiding people who are helping us in this country instead of developing. So what needed to happen is there needed to be developed a comprehensive immigration reform, which not only included more security at the border, which would have stopped the incursion that was happening, the same that the way that they've stopped it now. That part. But then they forgot the other part. They didn't let in people who were doing jobs and were helping the country, and they could have done that. They weren't letting people stay who were law abiding, who had been here for 10 years without committing a crime. Those type of things should have been allowed to continue, and they weren't. And they needed to be codified into law, and they weren't. And that's what happens is that now we have. I implore you to, and maybe you've played this on your show, but when Mark's show is over, go to the daily podcast by the New York Times a couple days ago on this immigration. They interviewed the czar, and before they interviewed him, they played these heartrending places audio of kids being ripped away and yelling "Daddy, Daddy."
Yeah, it's absolutely horrifying. It really is.
It makes me cry right now. It's just terrible. What these people are doing.
I mentioned the 19-year-old last hour. I mentioned a 19-year-old who was ripped. I mean, this guy just graduated and went to the Immigration and Custom Enforcement check-in. It was a routine check-in. In other words, he was following the law, and it turned out to be a trap. They grabbed him, and now he's gone.
That's what they're doing. They're hanging out at the asylum courts, and even if they're granted asylum, they pick them up and take them out of the country. It's just it's just atrocious, And if you want to go around and look for criminals who are criminal people who are here illegally, I'm all for it. Go get them. I'm also all for going to look for criminals who are not criminal aliens. Do them both. But to go and do what they're doing and ripping families apart who are not criminal in any fashion, that's just horrible. And it's ripping families. It's hurting our country. Pretty soon we're not going to have this kind of this kind of country where we have workers who work very hard and, frankly, very cheaply. Doing jobs that none of these people in none of these other folks want to do or will do for this price. And they say that they're taking jobs away. Some of them say they're taking, this dude who's the czar. He keeps saying that they're going to they're taking jobs away from American citizens. Not true. You take me an American citizen. Look, I did that work as part of a story. I went out and I stood in and I worked in the fields as part of a story when I was 20 years old, working for KCBS Radio in San Francisco as an undercover quote unquote farm worker. I worked for a week. That's all I could do. It was so hard, and the conditions in which you live.
Yeah, they're brutal. They're inhuman. You could and if you say anything, you're threatened with deportation. And the other thing I've noted is that it was
you
not
still
even
there, Mark?
Yeah. I was going to say I didn't know if you dropped out or what, but what I was going to note was that
I'll get back to you. Sorry.
Hello. Oh, can you not hear us? Maybe you can't hear us anymore. But the reality is that, and I've noticed this on the show, noted it on the show before, that there was an experiment by which they paid, and I wish I could remember the exact number. It was a high hourly wage to American citizens who they put in the agricultural harvest in California. It was these, as Jim has just noted, they were hired. They weren't, everybody knew what they were doing, and they got into it, and none of them lasted even 2 weeks. I think there were 50 of them. None of them, not one, lasted even 2 weeks. It's tough work, and it's being done by these people who are in the main earnest, and they have been demonized in ways that are just incredible. And as I mentioned, in the span of 2 weeks, that 19-year-old went from celebrating his graduation to being detained by ICE and now deported to a country he hasn't lived in since he was 8 years old. It's unconscionable. It's wrong. And if Trump really cared, and this administration really cared, they'd craft an immigration policy that isn't just deportation.
Right. You want to deport those who deserve to be deported, I'm behind you. And I think most of the Latino community is behind you. That's why they voted for Trump. They thought he was going to do what he said he was going to do. I don't know why they thought that was going to happen, but they did. And now they've seen that he isn't. I'm hoping they remember that in 3 years.
You know, this is coming in from M. Oak, didn't Obama deport millions of, and just saying, to be fair, yeah, Obama did, but not like this.
So let me explain the deportation.
Yeah,
under
you were
Obama.
reporting from the White House during the Obama
Yes, I have a
administration.
picture right over here of me talking to him. Let me just turn my camera on and turn it around.
No, we believe you. You don't need to show. Okay. Yeah, there it is. There's Avila.
That's a shot of me talking to Mr. Obama about this very issue. And I asked him, and that's the only time he got mad at me in the entire time, even though I asked him, well, no, it was twice. I asked him about Syria and the Red Line. But I asked him about, they're calling you the deporter in chief. What do you think of that? He said, well, it's unfair, first of all. So here's what was happening. At that time, the Gang of Eight, in 2015, the Gang of Eight included guys like Lindsey Graham and Marco Rubio, Republicans. They were on that committee. And they decided that they were going to do comprehensive immigration reform. And part of the good faith effort, it was a good faith sort of method that Obama took on, was he said, okay, fine, I will even start the deportation before you start voting for a comprehensive reform that allows a path to citizenship, those type of things. And so he began to deport criminals. And that's what he did. And that earned him the title of the deporter in chief. So did he do that? Yes, he did. Was there a political reason for it? Yes, there was.
Oh, that's interesting. I never knew that. He did it, you're saying, as a first gesture to try to kind of grease the skids so that we could actually get some immigration policy? That's what
Absolutely. That's what he said he did. That's what he said he was doing, is to show the Republicans that if they did their part, that he would do his part, that he would set up a large number of border agents at the border, and that he would put in huge amounts of money into the system that kept people out with all kinds of new what do you call that? New technology. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Apologize. I just got out of the hospital. I'm still on
That's
drugs.
okay. Yeah, you're still on all kinds of medicines, right?
So yes, he did that, and so that was a sort of, I will do this, you will do that. Well, he did that, and they didn't do that.
The reality is also, and it kind of, because this sort of echoes of this, when they finally got around to crafting a GOP-controlled immigration plan, right? The Trump people said, no, don't pass that, because it will be
It was too similar to what the Democrats wanted. There were some things in there that were fair.
Yeah.
And so,
look how young Obama looks when he's talking to Jim Avila. Wow.
Yeah, he was. Well, look at how young I looked. Jesus.
There's Avila talking to Obama on the White House lawn. I think they're tearing up that lawn to put in pickleball courts or something. I don't know what they're doing there.
Oh my goodness! It's just it's a shame what the
Rose Garden is being replaced with I don't know,
concrete, right? Something like that.
Concrete. He wants a patio there where he can invite all his meme coin bidders to
have dinners out there. He wants it to look like Mar-a-Lago.
Exactly. Love that we visited. Thank you, Jim. Continue to get better. And there's Avila, handsome devil, talking to Obama as they stroll along the White House. Avila like to ply Obama with a couple of easy softball questions early, get him to trust him. And then he comes in with the sidewinder. Am I right?
Well, you gotta do a little bit of that with everybody, don't you?
Yeah, that's the best.
But there was a huge difference, though, Mark, and I don't know, you're probably out of time, but the huge difference was that Obama knew what our role was. That's press. He knew that we were there to challenge him, and he enjoyed being challenged. And, he was happy to answer the questions. Trump, wants to have his butt kissed the whole time. And, the press doesn't do that. That's not what we do. And, it's a totally different ballgame. Totally different.
Well, I mean, Trump is playing president and wants an amen corner from the press.
That's absolutely right. That's a good way to put it. That's a good way.
They are kissing my ass.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah,
All
he
right.
loves that. I don't know who you are, but I'm glad I picked you because I don't know who you are. I love Terry Moran's interview. I wish Terry Moran would have asked the one question. So tell us about the Monroe Doctrine. What is it exactly? What does the Monroe Doctrine mean?
Well, he asked about the Declaration of Independence. He basically did that with an even
it's
easier
a declaration,
question.
Mark. It's a declaration. It's about independence. God damn it.
He really is like it's like talking to a sixth grader who hasn't read the material.
It
for
is.
the book report.
It's really funny. Oh.
All right, love you, Jim. Continue to get better, and we'll
Thanks,
talk to you
Mark.
next
Love
week.
you and your audience. They're the best. Thank you.
All right, thanks, pal. Jim Avila, everybody. I love it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I love talking to Avila. He's the real thing. Thank you, Jim Avila, says Jane O. Here's to a speedy recovery. Yeah. And indeed, we all want him to get well soon. Desecrating the garden that Jackie Kennedy and Lady Bird Johnson built. Erasing history, says Simone. Yeah. I mean, he's erasing more than just a garden. I mean, he's going through the White House and he's erasing a lot of history to conform with the narrative that they are more comfortable with. I mean, I mentioned the removal of Martin Luther King's bust and the White House itself, the Oval Office itself is a gilded place now, a lot like gold and the stuff that America has typically recoiled from. We haven't really, I think in part because of our power economically, our power militarily, we sort of don't want the gold superhero position that's implied by all the power that we already have. It's sort of as though, hey, you don't need to say it, you don't need to show it. The people's house shouldn't be a palace filled with gold and with the bounty of success. It should be obviously a big place, but it should be more muted because the power has with it responsibility, right? And that's such an important implied message and explicit message. None of that is in this current crew, right? They're about power, strength, always with the flex. And so that's why wealth and military strength, those are the two things they go back and forth on. Kim, I'll ask you, what should we do? We have to go right to Snyder?
Yeah, I think we need to go to the Culture Blaster and blast our way into the weekend.
All right. Albert, are you good with that?
I'm good. Yeah. It's
All right.
We're getting pretty late.
I'm going to, before I get to the Culture Blaster, because I like to make him wait.
Come on.
Kurt says, I'm happy you have seen the light. Albeit 8 months too late, we needed to send up flares for a recount back in November of 2024. I don't know why you're saying I saw it late. I said it all along. I really have, I think. Maybe, you can show me how I didn't. But I, from the very earliest time, said, how come we're not getting a recount? We had Greg Palast on the show 4 times or something. That's just one way in which there should have been a recount. Harry Magnan, thank you. Mark is a very stable genius. Thank you for realizing it. Harry. Yeah. Harry gets it. And did I just see a White Knight logo on the hat of Gnome's ICE agent? We need to call that crud out, says Scott Rittenberg. I didn't see that picture. I guess when we showed it, I didn't see it. Did you see it, Albert? The White Knight logo. Let me see if I mean, is that it? I'm trying
Yeah,
to see
it appears. I'm not sure if that's a correct specific one. I'm not sure about the lore, but it is a White Knight on the hat.
Okay, so that is a white supremacist reference. I think it's a prison gang originally. These white supremacists in prison. I don't know if that's it though. To be honest, I don't know what the White Knight logo looks like. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. I hate to smear somebody but it wouldn't surprise me. It's kind of on brand. And I think that's right. I think that is the White Knight. So, I'm going to look into it more, but Scott Rittenberg, I think, is right. That is some really awful stuff. And why should he be able to wear a hat like that anyway? I mean, isn't there an official uniform that these guys have? It's really out of control.
No, we see them in street clothes. I saw an ICE agent with just a regular shirt, a T-shirt with a logo on the front, like a brand logo. So
Wes is asking this, off topic, but address it later. My neighbor flies an all-black American flag in Polk County. What does that mean? I've read conflicting things online. Maybe you can check on that, Albert? An all-black American flag in Polk County.
Well, there's the muted one that's kind of in black and whites that with a blue line that is, supporting police. I'm not sure if that's what he means or if there's another one I don't know about.
Here's to a Mark Tini and Kim McCausey at the Red Jack. I'm very grateful, Harry Magnan. There's the Red Jack Saloon. It's in San Francisco. They are great supporters. And for those who are visiting San Francisco, here's a cool fact about the Red Jack Saloon. It's a great spot to, it's just one of those great spots. And they've got all these different beers and all that stuff. There you go. You get a stuff from inside. Great place to watch sports. But the owners live right upstairs, which I totally love. And they're big supporters of the show from our KGO days in San Francisco. That, again, is a really, really cool thing. And Lucy McAllister, my favorite McAllister. Big shout out for a $20 super sticker. Thank you for that, Lucy McAllister. And thanks to everybody who supports this show through super stickers and super chats like Lucy McAllister. Those of you who have joined through Patreon and PayPal, you are part of our monthly support structure that keeps the show on the air. We're a 2-hour live show and couldn't be here without you. That's why we post your names every day, and we update that list of names at the end of every month. I cannot delay any longer, much as I want to. Let's begin. I know.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Let's begin a visit with our Friday friend. He has written about every bit of cinema, music, and the subtitles, and the Marvel universe, and the DC universe, and he watches it all. The streamers, the theater stuff. I don't know how he does it. I could never do it. But he does it with aplomb. How about it for the brilliant Culture Blaster, Michael Snyder, everybody. Michael, I know you're on the road today. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you for delaying us to the top of the hour. So, maybe I have a minute or two to tell you what's what.
Give me your best 6 minutes, Michael.
Oh, good luck on that. The summer solstice is here. The summer solstice is upon us. It's today, the longest day of the year. which means more light to fight the powers of darkness. And
Oh.
we sure need it, right? With the Orange Ogre, Renfield Miller, Pete the Drunk, Christy the Mutt Slayer, Pam the Corrupt, Bobby the Worm Hotel, and of course, Cash the Creepazoid running rampant through the corridors of power. I was so thrilled to see the No Kings rallies last weekend. That was last weekend, wasn't it? It seems like months ago for some reason.
Yeah, you're right. Think time just really does blow along much more quickly these days.
Meanwhile, as you said, getting back to foggy San Francisco this week, I was greeted by a series of pro-artificial intelligence bus stop ads that read, "Stop hiring humans," to encourage the use of AI employees to handle sales outreach instead of, people who need jobs.
Oh,
You know,
is that really true?
Yes. They're all over the place here in San Francisco. And, Silicon Valley, you never fail to disappoint me. As if the robocalls weren't enough. We've got to
Can you
deal with
take a
this.
picture of one of those? I'd love to see it. Somebody take a
I
picture of
will.
one of those.
I will. And I will send it to you. There's one right a block away from my San Francisco apartment. And I walk past it every day. And I'm like, oh, my God, how did this happen? And we know how it happened. Anyway, speaking of horror, let's get down to movies and the horror movie film de semaine, and that's French for film of the week, is of the prestige variety. 28 years later, Reteam's director Danny Boyle and screenwriter Alex Garland. Boyle has won the Academy Award. Garland has been nominated. Garland's movie Civil War was really a terrific and topical film that I recommend people seek out. But they're doing 28 Years Later, which is a sequel to their 2002 corker, 28 Days Later, and its 2007 follow-up, 28 Weeks Later. So they took a little time. 28 years later, catches up to the world almost 3 decades after something called the rage virus escaped a biological weapons lab in England, quickly infected people, and turned them into hordes of slavering zombies. Boyle and Garland get the band of flesh-eating lunatics and those they hunt back together again. And in this alternate reality, the zombie apocalypse is now confined to the UK after initially spreading across the Channel to France and the rest of continental Europe until it was beaten back by those resourceful members of the EU. I mean, no wonder Brexit was such a failure, right? Anyway, while the infected run wild on the mainland, a group of survivors lives a simple life on an adjacent island with a wall protecting them from incursions. Aaron Taylor Johnson, who was most recently seen as Kraven the Hunter in the less than satisfying Marvel spin-off Kraven the Hunter, is back on the plus side of his filmography as a respected town leader, forager, and zombie killer on the island, whose wife, played by Jodie Comer of Killing Eve fame, is dying, and not from the rage virus. So their coming-of-age son, Spike, played by Alfie Williams, is learning the ropes as a zombie killer, as you must in this reality. But he's more interested in finding real medical help for Mom on the mainland against the wishes of his father, even if it means crossing the dangerous causeway alone during low tide and encountering tribes of the infected. And what the kid discovers is a character played by Ralph Fiennes, who is not what he expected. And he also finds carriers of the rage virus who seem to have mutated into like hierarchies. So there are some logic issues and dumb choices that a teenager might make, but the tension and action scenes are effective. And, the subtexts are especially impactful in the wake of a global pandemic. 28 years later is in theaters, and it's pretty good.
How scary is it, Michael?
It's got some great tense moments, and there's, zombie gore, but it's not for you, Mark. Okay? It's just not for you.
All right, I hope that the good zombies beat out the bad zombies. What's next?
Well, there are no good zombies, dude. Come on, get serious. They haven't mutated that well.
Did you know that?
Are there werewolves or vampires in it?
In your dreams, maybe we can set one of those Predator versus Alien situations up with the zombies going against, Anyway, look, I can't, won't, and don't want to hate on the latest Pixar feature film, Elio, which does so many of the things Pixar movies do and does them well. Exquisite visuals, fanciful designs, and human drama of sorts. And hey, like 28 years later, it has a central figure who is a boy, even younger than the one in the zombie movie, who finds himself in a perilous other world. The title character of Elio is a pint-sized, initially bullied, outer space-obsessed boy, orphaned and living with his army officer aunt, who conveniently works at a military base monitoring orbital debris. Yeah, that's right. The kid's an orphan. We learn of his parents dying at the start, shades of the widowed husband in Pixar's Up. And, that'll earn some emotional connection with the audience. And it's almost a cheat code, right?
Right.
Through a series of security failures and glitches at the military base, Elio is able to send a verbal message into the ether, and it reaches sentient beings up there who believe the boy is the designated ambassador from Earth and transport him to a far-flung solar system where multiple species have gathered for an interplanetary conclave. Of course, his by-the-book aunt is really concerned about his disappearance, and the U.S. government is mobilized when it's established that first contact has been made. This is the sort of movie where it's a given that the timid Elio will find courage and pride in himself when he's embraced as Earth's official representative by the Alien Council, which is known as the Communiverse. And when the council and the kid are subsequently confronted by an alien despot with a recalcitrant son facing some of the same issues that Elio faces, it's pretty obvious how things are going to transpire. It's rapid fire hijinks, almost too rapid fire, and it does have some appealing moments, but the world building in Elio is so overloaded, its hero's journey is so contrived, and the swashbuckling actions of its young lead character are so, I'll call them heedless and removed from reality, that this adult who buys into Pixar at its best could not tap into that suspension of disbelief so easy to access in movies with like talking toys, a Parisian rat that's a master chef, a family of superheroes, et cetera, et cetera. Easier to believe that while it was on screen than what I was watching in Elio. Okay. Kids will probably love Elio for its dazzlingly different aliens and the pluck displayed by Elio. It was directed by Madeline Sharafian and Domi Shi alongside screenwriter Adrian Molina, with Jonas Kilbrebe giving voice to Elio. How about this? Zoe Saldana providing vocals for Elio's Aunt Olga, and Brad Garrett, Jamila Jamil, and Shirley Henderson voicing significant aliens for all the fun that younger viewers are going to have watching this. And again, it is visually stunning. I found it to be lesser Pixar. Like 28 years later, it is in theaters wide across our great nation.
Wow. That's too bad, because it looks like the animation or the visual display is quite beautiful.
They have set a standard at Pixar with deep feeling and really rich characterizations that make you kind of forget you're watching an animated movie. And in this case, that was never, on the table. I just was okay.
I mean,
This
there's
is
a lot
fun.
going on there.
A werewolf
can kill a vampire. Did you know that?
Yeah, were there any werewolves or vampires in Elio or not?
No, but there is a big, angry, toothy alien despot, as noted in my review.
All right.
Okay. Let's get to something for the grown-ups. And, not that 28 years later isn't for grown-ups, but this is a more serious reality-based drama. It's called Inside, and it is a potent prison drama from Australia that's given great depth and gravitas by its three lead actors. One of them is Guy Pearce, who has recently earned so much acclaim for The Brutalist. He was in LA Confidential and Memento. He plays Warren Murfitt, a convict on the verge of parole. Cosmo Jarvis, who was the Englishman in Shogun, and absolutely fantastic there, plays Mark Shepard, a man whose crimes have turned him into a public pariah and who responded by finding religion behind bars. And then the third of the trio is Vincent Miller as Mel Blight, who is a juvenile offender that's just been transferred to the adult prison. So in short order, there is a tug of war between the older inmates for, I guess we'd call it, the de facto mentorship of Moldable Mel. So who will capture his heart and mind? Who of these two inmates will do so? That is a central aspect of Inside, which also paints a really harrowing picture of how the prison system can simply make people even worse. And also, it shows what's necessary to survive inside or turn your life around and make it back outside. It was written and directed by Charles Williams. It's in select theaters. Inside is a very good movie.
Wow, I like it. Gritty, intense, adult. Good. What else do you have?
Yeah. Well, we'll just wrap up the movie segment with a major disappointment. But, I could see this disappointment coming down the block. So, the Suits, they always like the tried and the true. So someone must have said in some boardroom somewhere, I love Bridesmaids. It was hilarious. And I loved Spy. It was hilarious. That Melissa McCarthy, she's so funny. Why don't we combine the two ideas and see if we can get, Melissa McCarthy doesn't want to do these movies over again. What about Rebel Wilson? She's a little on the Zoptic Melissa McCarthy side. She'll do anything for a laugh. And thus we have Bride Hard. And from the corny title alone, this is a bit much. So,
well, I'll be the judge of that. Tell me about the movie.
Rebel Wilson plays Sam, who, even though she looks like Rebel Wilson, is some sort of dangerous spy and secret agent, but she's also friends with some normals, and she's invited to be a maid of honor at her childhood best friend's wedding. And so she joins the girls. And by the way, another little element here is that very successful movie Girls Trip or Girls Night Out, whatever. They throw all that into the mix here. Yeah. And of course, because Sam is part of the wedding party, she is targeted by mercenaries who obviously want to do some awful things to everyone. And it's up to Sam to save everybody. And oh my God, at one point, are you ready for the level of wit here? At one point, she turns to the bride and goes, I'm your bride or die, like ride or die. I mean,
I see. Yeah.
Is the level of wit here.
Of clever. Yeah. Okay.
Not particularly. I do want to point out that they also tried to hedge their bets by bringing Rebel Wilson back together with Anna Camp, who was one of the girls in Pitch Perfect. They wanted to kind of recapture that Pitch Perfect magic, and sure. No, sir. Other people's wasted talents. Let's see. Divine Joy Randolph, fantastic actress. Nope, no good. She's in this crappy thing. Anna Chlumsky, you loved her in Veep. You won't particularly go crazy for her here. And Sherry Cola, who was so good in a similar movie called Joyride about a bunch of Asian Americans that go to China, all gals, is also in this film. They're looking for, repeat performance somehow. And sure. This just does not work. It's just not funny. I was like, let me out of here. How I felt that occasionally at various weddings. I just wanted to be elsewhere,
What's on TV?
Well, I'm speaking of the gals. Sirens is absolutely worth your time on Netflix. It is a kind of a mix of black comedy and drama, starring Julianne Moore as the wife of a very wealthy, powerful man, played by Kevin Bacon, and she has an assistant who was played by young Millie Alcock, who, by the way, was so good in House of the Dragon as one of the Targaryens, with the white hair and such. And she plays a girl from Buffalo and from kind of below working class means, who is now amongst the rich and well-heeled as the assistant to Julianne Moore's character, who is also, by the way, a environmentalist trying to save endangered birds. That's like her big mission in life. And she has all these charity galas on this beautiful island off the coast of the northeast part of our country. Very, very upscale, Tony, beautiful house on a cliff and what have you. But there's intrigue afoot, particularly when the sister of the Simone character played by Millie Alcock shows up and wants Millie's character to help her with their dad, who is suffering from dementia. So Devin, the sister who's come from Buffalo to kind of re-enlist her sister and get her assistance with Dad is played by Megan Fahey, who was really wonderful in that recent thriller Drop. And Dad is played by Bill Camp, a fantastic character actor. All of these actors are used to a T. They're really great. It's funny. It's witty. There's this tug of war between the sister and the boss for the affections and attention of Simone, the assistant. I really enjoyed the hell out of this, and I can't recommend it enough. It's Sirens.
I know it's hot. I've heard a lot of good things about it from others too. So yeah, that's great. Sirens. What do you want to finish up with, Michael Snyder?
Well, I will just say, since we're talking about the gals, and we love the gals, talk about guilty pleasures. I have been watching season 3 of And Just Like That, the sequel to Sex and the City. It's kind of now Cougars in the City. It's a decade down the line. The gals are a little older, and of course, Sarah Jessica
Are they?
Parker.
They're not married. The gals are still single. What's the story? I didn't really follow
Well,
it.
Sarah Jessica
Courtney never
Parker.
misses a second of it. What?
Carrie, by the character played by Sarah Jessica Parker, is still involved with the kind of rustic, kind of down to earth guy played by. God, what's the name of the actor? He's anyway. The point is, they're still together, but they have kind of a long distance relationship. And one of the characters is married and has 2 kids, and the other one has found her true self, has left her husband, and is still mothering their teenage son, or who's already probably pushing into his 20s, but she is come out as a lesbian. She's played by Cynthia Nixon. And they've got a couple other gals on board, a couple other gals. They brought us Rita Chaudhry and Nicole Ari Parker, and it's still no sign of Samantha. She's the actress was not that interested in reprising the role. The first episode of season 3 did what was most important for the show. It included a scene with Carrie in a ridiculously big, dumb hat. And that seems to be the raison d'etre of the show, the women parading around in haute couture. But you also, get stuff like Rosie O'Donnell as a Canadian nun visiting New York City for the first time and getting her lesbian on with Cynthia Nixon's Miranda.
Oh my God.
Thompson, Party of 4.
Yeah, it is so big.
You can. It's on Max or HBO Max.
So I'm unclear though. You liked it or you don't like it, or what is it?
It's a guilty pleasure because I keep watching it going, how is anybody buying any of this?
Let's review. He has the guilty pleasure, and just like that, Sex and the City all grown up. And he has Sirens, which is more than a guilty pleasure. It's a mix of black comedy and drama. Julianne Moore, Kevin Bacon. He really likes it. I saw a lot of positive comments in the chat as well. That's on Netflix, and these are the TV kind of streaming offerings. Now we get to the theaters. Bride Hard, the answer to Bridesmaids and a bunch of other kind of bridesmaids-ish films with Rebel Wilson, and this one plays a spy as a wedding guest, and it's a mess. Michael couldn't wait for it to end. Inside is the prison film from Australia. He used the word pariah, which is a ding word. He also, by the way, just to double back, used raison d'etre, which is a ding word. All right, so he really likes Inside, this prison film, and says you should run, not walk to see it. It's in select theaters. Elio, the Pixar film. I loved the art. I'm just working off of the poster on Elio, and I can't wait to see it. And then Michael says, no, it would be a mistake to see it.
Why are you yelling? Dude,
and
Pixar has a built-in patina of quality that's undeniable. It's just not up to their best work.
Patina's a ding word. It is true that my enthusiasm now has been chastened, has been pulled back by the fact that Snyder does not like it.
Why are you yelling?
And so Elio is a pass. He started with 28 years later, the horror film that sounded like it had a lot of stuff going on. It had this stuff and that stuff and this stuff and that stuff. And
a werewolf can kill a vampire. Did you know that?
Did not have any werewolves or vampires, I don't believe. But He thought it was meh. I got from you on this.
It was good, but it wasn't up to the original 28 Days Later. But
but this is good. Okay, so it's better than meh.
It's good for what it is. I just also thought people made some dumb moves, and for plot purposes, and you really kind of wonder sometimes.
Michael, it's being asked in the chat by Randy, is Kim Cattrall in this and just like that, the Sex and the City continuing
No,
thing?
she's Samantha. I don't want to dishonor Kim Cattrall for having the cojones to say no to Sarah Jessica Parker and this big revival, although she did appear shot separately from the rest of the cast in a climactic moment in the first season. But yeah, she really did not. She's missing, and she was really the best thing about the original series.
Well, many would say that you're the best thing about the world of film and cinema, the way you review. You're a wordsmith. You have a topicality to your opening remarks. You're a treasure, Michael Snyder. And I love that you spend time with us every Friday. When will you be back in studio with us? Is that coming sometime soon?
We just don't know. We just don't know. Right. The siren's call of San Francisco is upon me. I'll be back when I'm back when I'm back. But I do miss Los Angeles. Remember, I was waxing ecstatic about the jacaranda trees. None of them here in San Francisco, but we do have fog.
San Francisco is pretty great in most ways, I think. So it's
fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
And our Giants are playing the Boston Red Sox out at Oracle Park this weekend, which brings Rafi Devers into a confrontation with his former team now that he's been acquired by the Giants. I'm very excited.
Yeah, you are loving all of that new firepower in the lineup, huh?
You bet.
Jane O says, thank you, Michael. And she speaks for many of us. I will encourage everyone to read your stuff at thevoicesf.org. You can find Michael Snyder at thevoicesf.org. Michael, as I say, you're a gem. Thanks for spending time with us. He comes and goes on a rainbow. Bye-bye, Michael.
So long and go Giants.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I could stay all day, everyone. I'm loving it. Just getting in a groove. Still got a bunch of stuff I want to talk to you. I want to talk about that marijuana study. It's huge. Why couldn't I do that, Albert? Why can't I talk about my marijuana study? I'm doing my own little study on marijuana that I haven't had the results in yet.
Albert, thank you.
But it's a, I'm just saying. You're right. It is. All right. It's done. You're right. I'm a big fan of Harry Magnin. He's mentioned I'm a very stable genius, and we've mentioned that already. So thank you. I'm also quite a fan of Citizen Morgan. Why? Because Citizen Morgan says the Mark Thompson Show is the best live show on YouTube. Thank you.
That's right.
Every day, 2 hours. From 2 to 4 in the east and from 11 to 1 in the west. Usually you start a few minutes after the top of the hour. Anyway, this is a really cool thing to be able to visit with everyone.
I blame you.
We do probably start a few minutes late because of me. I am to blame. The Ken Reeves, how much do you want to bet that Trump will attempt to pay E. Jean Carroll with crypto? Yeah, that's where all his money is. He's doing everything he can to wait until, she's not able to enjoy it anymore. This thing has dragged on with her for a long time. Rev P says, same here, Mark. I'm going to need a few more sessions to determine the effectiveness of cannabis. It's not the effectiveness they're challenging. This latest study is suggesting that there are cardiovascular implications to regular use of cannabis, regardless of whether you smoke it or eat it. There, I just said it, Albert, and you couldn't stop me, okay? I got the story in. So,
and it's the second such study, right? To come out with this kind of,
it's a little more comprehensive in terms of numbers than the first. The first only had 50 participants. So I'll be honest with you, concerned, but I told you for 30 years, I never got high at all, but I was even probably worse. I was, doing the drink. I mean, again, not, crazy fall down drunk drink, but just regular kind of social drinking. And then I found the cannabis, and I think it's really cool. And let's face it, We all need medicating. We all need medicating. I am going to tell you, and I'm going to break some news right here, right now. I have a special interview, that is dropping tomorrow. We'll drop it as a separate video. You know, we drop videos from this channel. Please hit the notification bell and you'll know when it drops. I think you'll really enjoy it. It's not related to politics or Trump or anything, so it's perfect weekend fare, and it's with an award-winning investigative journalist.
What?
I know. It's happening tomorrow. I think that will drop. I will encourage you to check out the After Party Live, which is on the After Party Live channel, and I'll also encourage you to join our June Swoon event, which is a week from yesterday. It's next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. And now,
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
$50 donation to PayPal, then you'll RSVP to us that you've done it, and you'll join our scene, mtsmeetup@gmail.com. Until Monday, bye-bye.